Pope Leo's new apostolic exhortation, De Lexite. The first thing to know is that De Lexite is an apostolic exhortation. In other words, it's not laying out church doctrine per se, the way a papal encyclical does. Rather, it's taking things we already know or should know and exhorting us, encouraging us. And so that's the nature of what an apostolic exhortation is. So sometimes people have read this document and said, oh, we already know this stuff. Like, come on. But it's like, yeah, but go do it. A lot of this is stuff that we know or should know already. I found there were a lot of points where I'd never heard a particular quote before, or there was a way of phrasing things that I thought was really striking or really challenging in a good way. But it's not going to be something where you say, oh, I didn't realize I was supposed to care for the poor as a Christian, hopefully. Hopefully, a lot of this feels familiar, but it is nevertheless a good thing to be challenged about. Second, Pope Leo makes very clear that he's taking a draft that was already worked on by Pope Francis and then adding his own kind of commentary on it. In fact, I think we should view this as sort of a companion document to something Pope Francis wrote or issued last year called De Lexite Nos, which was on the Sacred Heart. De Lexite Nos means he loved us. It's coming from St. Paul's description of Christ in Romans 8. De Lexite means I have loved you. And significantly here, it's from Revelation chapter 3 about how the poor are beloved by Christ and those who are powerless in the world are beloved by Christ. And Pope Leo then connects this with the Magnificat, which if you pray the Liturgy of the Hours, we pray every evening at Vespers, in which Mary talks about how God has cast down the mighty from their thrones and lifted up the lowly, how he's filled the hungry with good things and the rich he has sent away empty. Now, those words are very challenging, and putting them in this context, I think is really important, that we don't just care for the poor because we have something and they don't, or because we see someone in need. All of those are good reasons, but also because if we don't, we will be cast down, we will be judged, we will be damned. And this is something that maybe we don't talk about enough as Christians. I've heard a lot of homilies kind of excusing wealth in a very wealthy country, saying, oh, well, it's not being wealthy that's a problem, it's just being greedy. But there is, in fact, this sense in which Jesus can say, woe to you, rich. And if we've lost some of that edge in the gospel proclamation, this is a good reminder. We need to be exhorted to reclaim it. Pope Leo is very clear that this is something Pope Francis had been preparing in the last months of his life. Leo is now making the document his own. So he's taking the draft Francis began and then adding his own kind of reflections and his own words. And I think you can sense that pretty clearly in the document. There are parts where I think it's fair to speculate, oh, that reads like Pope Francis. Like this has a very familiar kind of voice and tone. It is nevertheless really good and really important. And Leo says as much, that he continues this project because he considers it essential to insist on this path to holiness. Now, I like that framing. He's not just saying we should care for the poor out of social justice or economic equality or something like that, but because we actually want to strive for holiness.